The following program is made possible by the friends and partners of GodQuest Ministries.
What is being taught in the textbooks today? Is it considered fact, or is there faith in the textbooks? That's what we're talking about today on the Creation Today show, where we believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate from the very beginning. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Hovind.
And I'm Paul Taylor. And this is the sixth in our special series of programs based on Eric Hovind's Beginnings series. We're actually looking at material from the fifth session of the Beginnings series on the subject of fact versus faith and the material in textbooks. That's our subject for this special program. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the Creation Today show with me, Paul Taylor, and with Eric Hovind. And we love to answer your questions on this show. Please keep your questions coming in. You can contact us at questions@creationtoday.org. Or this right. Facebook, isn't
there?
Yeah,
facebook.com/creationtoday, and then of course twitter.com/Creation Today.
Creation Today, or something like that. If you're a Twitterer, then you can contact us there as well. So please do keep your questions coming in. We haven't answered any for a few episodes because we've been doing a series of special episodes on the subject of Eric Hovind's Beginnings series, which is so important. And in fact, Eric, today we're looking at fact versus faith, and you're talking about textbooks, aren't you? And I've got some notes here that I made from school textbooks back in the day when I was at school, because we did have books then. But the trouble is, I noticed that it's now all wrong. We can't use those anymore.
So
Paul, we just can't have them. and I noticed that in the excerpt that we're going to see, you were tearing things up as well.
You know, I did, and this is going to be a little bit controversial for some of you out there, because I take a public school textbook. It's not God's Word. I take a public school textbook, and I'm ripping out the wrong information. This is something that is so important. Students, rather than being educated, are being indoctrinated with the humanistic worldview, with the idea that there is no God. So I can understand them saying, look, we just want to teach pure science in the textbooks, but they're not. Faith has crept into the science textbooks, their faith. What they really don't want in the science textbooks is our faith. So that's what it boils down to. That's why I called this fact versus faith, because what is it that's really in the textbooks? Is it really all just facts that you can't argue with? Because you can't argue with a fact. A fact is true, right? If something is true, then it's a fact. You don't argue with that. But there are things in there that we really have a hard time with. They're not facts, they're faith.
But should things in science textbooks be presented all the time as if they were truth? Is that what science is about? Is science about presenting facts anyway?
Yeah, of course. Science is the inquiry for absolute truth. That's what it's searching for. And as we know, every branch of science was started by people that were on the search for God's absolute truth. They were started by creationists. And so when we look at this, at what's in the textbooks today, we find that it's not all just simple facts. The very idea of science says that we should be questioning things.
Yes.
Says, hey, let's go in and examine. Let's set up a hypothesis, and then let's try to tear that down. Let's see if it can hold up to the scrutiny and to the scientific inquiry and tear that down. But what we see today is that the one thing they don't want to do that with is what?
It's the theory of evolution.
That's exactly right. They don't want that one torn down.
In fact, everything else in the science curriculum, they'd look at, they would expect that pupils should be encouraged to question it.
That's right.
They? But in fact, let's sort of destroy some of the myths about this before we get into seeing your excerpt, because we haven't advocated banning evolution from public schools, have we?
No, not at all. If you're going to teach science, that is a scientific theory of how everything got started. So I don't mind you teaching that, but are you going to let people critique it?
Yeah.
Are you going to really put it out there to public scrutiny, or is that going to be your carefully guarded state religion, which is exactly what it's turned into.
Well, the thing is, of course, that we know it won't stand up to scrutiny. So we're not afraid of it being taught in public schools because we know that if pupils are able to question it, that they will see through it.
That's interesting because statistically, we look at what's happened here in America. I don't know where it's at in Britain, but here in America, we've seen 40 years of indoctrination trying to get people to believe in the evolution worldview. Yet every single poll still today shows that a majority of Americans believe God made the world.
Yeah, well, it's not quite a majority in Britain. For the last poll was 41% believe in creation in Britain, and a majority, about 60%, believe that there are problems with the theory of evolution.
Wow.
So, and that's in a very, very secularized society.
You can't say this case is settled by any means.
Absolutely not. Well, we're going to watch a very important excerpt indeed then from the beginning series in which Eric goes on the warpath with textbooks.
That's right. That river did not make that canyon. It's impossible. The Colorado River could not have formed Grand Canyon. So here they say that the Colorado River formed Grand Canyon. It cut through layer upon layer of rock over millions of years. Is that a fact or is that a faith-based statement? It's faith-based, isn't it? And we don't want faith-based statements in the book, do we? So we're going to have to take that out. We certainly don't want that in our textbook. Okay, let's go to another one here because that is definitely based on faith. What about the geologic column? You guys ever heard of the geologic column before? You got all these layers of sediment, the Cretaceous and the Jurassic Park named after the Jurassic layer, and you got all these different layers to the rock. Hey, are they really different ages? See, it was back during the early 1800s that each layer of rock was given a name, an age, and an index fossil. They said they knew how old the layer was way before carbon dating ever came around. Back in the 1800s, they went ahead and gave it an age, how old they thought that it was. Now, you got to understand the geologic column is the Bible for the evolutionists, okay? And it can only be found one place in the entire world. One place in the whole world you can find the geologic column. Guess where it's at? Right here in the textbooks. That is the only place in the entire world you can find the geologic column. It doesn't exist anywhere. This textbook admits it. If there were a column of sediments, unfortunately no such column exists. They admit we don't have the evidence. You really don't have anything called a geologic column. If it did exist in one place, it would be 100 miles thick. Wow. So the geologic column, is that fact or is that faith? Faith. It's faith. And we don't want faith in the textbooks, do we? No. So what do we need to do? We need to take that out of there, don't we? We do not want faith in the textbooks. How about this? There are layers to the earth. Nobody's going to question that. But are the layers different ages? If each layer was laid down slowly over millions of years, wouldn't you expect to see some erosion marks in between the layers? But we don't. All we see is nice, smooth layers that have been laid down. They tell us these layers are all different ages. You got 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, 400 million years old. Problem, they have found polystrata fossils. Fossils of trees running up through the different layers. Well, if you got a tree that's running up through all your different layers, well, could they be millions of years different in age? No, they couldn't. Here's a petrified tree standing straight up out of the ground at Yellowstone National Park. You ever seen one of them trees growing, the petrified kind? They're actually made out of stone. They grow right up out of the ground. Yeah. No, that doesn't happen, does it? These polystrata fossils show us that those layers are not different ages. Sometimes, get this, they even find the trees upside down running through those different layers. How many of you have seen one of those trees growing outside? The upside down tree, the roots are up, you got to dig for the apple? They're crazy, man. How do you explain this? Well, a worldwide flood would explain that. No problem. But those layers are not different ages. You're welcome to say, and they tell us, oh, those layers are different ages. But is that based on fact or is that based on faith? Faith. That's based on faith. And we don't want faith in the textbook, do we? No. So what do we need to do? We need to take that out of the textbook because we don't want that in our textbook, do we? No way.
You're watching an excerpt from Beginnings with Eric Hovind. We'll be right back. You're watching an excerpt from Beginnings with Eric Hovind on Creation Today. And now back to the show.
Check this out. If you ask an evolutionist, hey, how do you tell how old that layer of rock is? He'll say, that's a great question. We can tell the age of the layer of rock based on what fossils are found in it. They actually say that in here. We know the age of the layer based on the fossils. Then if you say, well, hang on, how do you know the age of the fossil? They say, oh, we know the age of the fossil based on what rock layer it's found in. Wait a minute. You know the age of the layer based on the fossil, and you know the age of the fossil based on the layer. Isn't that just simply circular reasoning? That's all it is. Here it is in the textbook. Page 306, they date the rock by the fossil. Page 307, they date the fossil by the rock. They tell us they know how old these things are. Is that based on fact or is that based on faith? That's faith. We don't want faith in the textbook, do we? So what do we need to do? We need to take that out of there. Yeah, we don't need faith in our textbooks, all right? How about this one? They say dinosaurs lived 70 million years ago. Well, you're welcome to believe that. But is that a fact or is that based on faith? That is definitely based on faith. Let me get there. There's my dinosaur right there. Next page. We don't want faith in the textbook, do we? No. So what do we need to do about dinosaurs being millions of years old? We need to take that out of there. Yeah, we don't want faith in the textbooks because, man, they really don't want that. Come on, they have found dinosaur bone with fresh blood inside. The dinosaurs did not live millions of years ago. They have found dinosaur bones that are not even petrified. They haven't turned to stone. Whoa! And you want me to believe that it's 70 million years old? Now we've got a problem, okay? I don't believe they are millions of years old. It's interesting. A couple years ago when they found these fresh dinosaur bones and they were not fossilized, they never, ever questioned how old the bones might be and said, well, maybe the dinosaurs didn't live millions of years ago. That thought never crossed their mind. Instead, they said, I wonder if that means that fossilization takes a lot longer than we thought. They missed the whole point. No, the point is dinosaurs didn't live millions of years ago. Now, Charles Darwin, who we give credit for coming up with the idea of evolution, even though he kind of stole it from his grandpa, but anyway, we give him credit for coming up with this idea of evolution. When he was out of Bible college, yes, that's right, he went to school to be a preacher, but anyway, he got out of Bible college and he set sail on the HMS Beagle, went around the world for 5 years. One of the places that he stopped on his trip around the world was the Galapagos Islands. When he stopped there on the Galapagos Islands, Charles Darwin found that there were a variety of finches on that island. He counted 14 different varieties of finches on that island. And Charlie had a thought. He said, you know, I'll bet you all those finches had a common ancestor. I'll bet he was right. I can even tell you what it was. Finch. But Charlie came up with a different idea. He said, maybe the finch and the eagle are related. Maybe the finch, the eagle, and the earthworm are related. Maybe the finch, the eagle, the earthworm, and the trees are related. Maybe I'm related to the finch. Whoa! Later on in his book, The Origin of Species, he says, it is a truly wonderful fact that all animals and all plants throughout all time and space should be related to each other. Whoa, 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 whoa. Is that a fact or is that based on faith? That is definitely a faith statement. There is no evidence that man and plants or animals and plants are related. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. So we don't want faith in the textbooks, do we? No. So what should we do with that? We need to take that out of the textbooks. We certainly do not want faith in our textbooks. I mean, we got to be above reproach here, okay? Now, Charles Darwin observed what is called microevolution. Micro means, come on now, micro means, yeah, micro means small. So Charles Darwin observed microevolution. We looked at that in session number 1. But then he jumped to the conclusion, well, maybe everything's related. He saw dogs producing a variety of dogs, roses producing a variety of roses, and he thought maybe they're all related. And its common ancestor was a rock. Oh, come on. Hey, here's how they define evolution in the textbooks. I love this. They confuse the kids as much as they can. Definition number 1, evolution is change over time. Is that really what they mean? Later on it says definition number 2, oh no, evolution is a change in living things over time. Well, hold on. Now you're down to just the last 2 stages of evolution. You remember the 6 types of evolution that we covered? Cosmic evolution, chemical evolution, stellar and planetary evolution, organic evolution. They didn't mention those in there, did they? If it's just the change in living things over time. Then definition number 3, evolution can be defined as a change in species over time. Well, now you're down to what I believe. Sure, microevolution takes place, and there's lots and lots of evidence of that. But they say evolution is just change over time. Is that fact or is that faith? Faith. It's more faith in the textbooks. What are we going to do about this, guys? We need to take it out. Yeah, let's get rid of that because we don't want faith in the textbooks. Okay, so we got all this faith in the textbooks. Here's the problem. The real meaning of evolution kind of gets slipped in under the door as kids continue to be, quote, educated. And if a kid objects to evolution teaching and says, I don't believe that's true, well, then they're kind of ridiculed. They're told, you just don't understand science. That's your problem. When really I think it's that we do have a grasp of reality. They say variations cause evolution. Do variations actually cause evolution? Here it is in a textbook. They say, look at this divergent evolution. And it's showing a variety of different dogs. Well, you're welcome to call that divergent evolution, but giving it a fancy name doesn't change the facts. It's still a dog, isn't it? And that's not really evolution. Variations do happen. There's no question about it. There's a variety of cows in the world, a variety of horses in the world, a variety of dogs in the world, a variety of cats in the world. Variations happen. However, they don't cause evolution. Now, this book teaches that variations actually cause evolution. There we go. Variations actually cause evolution. Is that based on faith or is that a fact? Faith. That's a faith-based statement, isn't it? And we don't want faith in the textbooks, do we? What do we need to do with this? We need to take that out of the textbook because that has nothing whatsoever to do with real science, okay? Now, evolution is based on 2 faulty assumptions. First of all, evolution, according to evolution, they say, well, mutations change things. And then natural selection causes this change to take over the whole population. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, do mutations happen? Yes. Here's a mutated bull. It's a bull with 5 legs. It's got an extra leg growing out of its back. It's mutated. But is that a beneficial mutation? Does that help out the bull at all? Can he run any faster with that extra leg? No, it ain't helping the bull at all. So, it's not a beneficial mutation. It doesn't help anything. Here's a short-legged sheep. It's a mutation, but it's not a beneficial mutation. Why? When the wolf comes running after him, he's the first one that's going to get caught, man, because he can't run fast enough. The wolf is going to come and the sheep are going to take off running. They're going to look back and say, "Aw, Herman didn't make it." Well, he can't run fast enough. Of course he's not going to make it. Here's a mutated turtle. He's mutant, but not ninja, okay? We got a mutated turtle. They say beneficial mutations cause evolution. The problem is there are no beneficial mutations. Check out this textbook. It says, boys and girls, normal fruit flies have 2 wings. This mutant has 4. This rare mutations, like most, is harmful. Then it says, beneficial mutations are the material for natural selection. Well, then why didn't they show us an example of a beneficial mutation? Because there aren't any. Now, they teach the kids in the books that beneficial mutations actually cause evolution. Is that a fact or is that a faith-based statement? That's a faith-based statement. We don't want faith in the textbooks, do we? So what should we do about that? We need to take that out of there, yeah, because we certainly don't want faith mixed in our science textbooks, okay? They say natural selection causes evolution. No. Natural selection can't cause anything to happen. Natural selection can only act on the biologic properties that already exist. It can't create something brand new. Natural selection isn't some magical, mystical creator that can make something brand new for us. Now, they tell us natural selection causes evolution. Is that a fact? Or is that what they believe? Is that a faith-based statement? That's a faith-based statement. We don't want that in our books, do we? So what do we need to do about that? We need to take that one out of the books, don't we? You kids are liking this, aren't you? Ripping up the textbooks. Don't do that with yours because you got to pay for it, okay? It's definitely a faith-based statement. Hey, you guys ever get these? They tell the kids, think critically. Yes, boys and girls, think critically. Do you think that humans are still evolving? What kind of a question is that? That's not telling the kids to think critically. That's like me saying, hey, have you stopped beating your wife yet? Think critically. The question assumes something, doesn't it? And today in the textbooks, they are doing a great job of telling the kids what to think and deceiving the kids rather than teaching them how to think. I don't know what it is about dinosaurs, but kids love them. That is why Danny the Dinosaur is the perfect guide as he takes kids on an adventure back to the beginning. Your kids are sure to fall in love with him as he tells them stories of what the world was like in the Garden of Eden and what happened at the time of the flood. The Danny the Dinosaur illustrated children's book was written by my dad, Dr. Kent Hovind. It is sure to meet your kids right where they are and help them understand the truths of Scripture from the very beginning. To get you started teaching your kids the truth today, just sign up and receive a free downloadable version of Danny the Dinosaur Book 1. Your adventure awaits.
Welcome back. You're watching Creation Today with me, Paul Taylor, and with Eric Hovind. Well, you've just been watching Eric in particularly vigorous form, ripping form, dare I say. You're tearing pieces out of textbooks.
I am ripped now. Well, maybe not, but yeah, I'm telling you, I'm passionate about this because there are so many students getting brainwashed. We all the time get to deal with this high school students and the college students saying, please help me. I'm being taught this. I don't believe it. I don't want to be taught this. And so we are regularly having to try to help people defend their faith and show them no, evolution isn't true. You can believe God and His Word. That is the truth.
It's sometimes difficult to know what attitude to take, isn't it? Whether it's to be angry about it, whether it's to be amused that these people still have the same ideas, the same old chestnuts over and over again. I mean, for example, I became a school teacher in public schools in Britain. For British viewers, it wasn't public schools according to British definition, state schools, okay, ordinary comprehensive schools, and that was in 1983. And the man teaching biology in the next door laboratory was explaining to me his curriculum, and it included telling people about evolution's true because of Haeckel's embryos.
Wow.
83, of course, that's been found fraudulent a long while.
A long time ago. Well, in the 1950s, definitely found to be fraudulent. But the whole idea of Haeckel's embryos is Darwin needed evidence that his theory was true. So a guy named Ernst Haeckel says, well, hey, I'll make some for you, basically. And he didn't say that to Darwin, but he makes some evidence. He took a dog embryo at 4 weeks and a human embryo at 4 weeks and drew them. The images that he drew looked exactly the same.
Yes.
So here he's giving illustrations saying, see, look, they look exactly the same. They're going through the dog and the human are going through the evolutionary stages in the womb. Well, it's interesting, but it's not true.
And if you see photos of those embryos,
they don't at all look like each other, do they?
No, they look completely different.
And you mentioned this. How should we react to this? Should we laugh that they're still teaching something that's so outdated, or should we get angry at it? You and I know when we meet people and share this information with them, and they finally are seeing the truth that they've never seen before, They're mad, aren't they?
I think I'm coming down more on the angry side at the moment.
They're going, I can't believe somebody would lie to me like that. I can't believe I've always believed a lie and I hadn't had the truth. That's exactly what they're really thinking.
And of course, people might say, Paul, you're very old. You're talking about the 1980s. Well, I've got a textbook, a biology textbook from Britain from the year 2001, and it's still got Haeckel's embryos in.
Today in school.
Absolutely. And it's still got peppered moths in it.
Yeah, peppered moth is another one.
And you said something about that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we did, because the whole idea of the peppered moth experiment, neat idea. First of all, they didn't really do the experiment. They glued dead moths to a tree in order to get the pictures they took. They used it as evidence of evolution, but as we saw in episode number 1, that's not evolution. That is variation within a kind. Variation can happen.
Yes.
We allow for that. That's not really evolution.
So even if the peppered moth thing had been true,
right, yeah,
it still wouldn't have been the evidence that they were looking for.
But that's what they keep giving, and they keep over and over and over. They slip evolution as oh, it's just change over time. That's not what they really mean.
Yes.
I'm telling you, that is a lie. Evolution, and when they say evolution, they really mean all the kinds of evolution.
It's an example of a logical fallacy, isn't it? And the fallacy is referred to as bait and switch.
That's exactly
And you get that a lot in the textbooks as well, don't you?
Yep, they give them one definition, or they'll say, well, hey, we've got descent with modification. Boys and girls, you look different from your parents, don't you? And the boys and girls are like, that's true. See, we're evolving. Evolution is true. That's not real evolution. That is minor variations.
Yes.
So it's not evolution. So they bait them with a little bit, look around, you look different. That proves evolution. No, it doesn't. They switch it on them, and it doesn't mean that.
It's very important to keep track of what the textbooks say on this.
Yeah.
Parents need to be aware of what's going to be in their children's textbooks.
That's exactly right. And for those of you that are upset with me for tearing out something in the textbooks, you need to get over it, okay? Because the truth is, we've got some real problems. I know some of you would love to volunteer to help tear out those pages. I don't know that we should do that, but you need to make sure and tear it out of your kids' minds.
That's right. Well, we've been watching Eric's beginning series. We've been looking at an excerpt from that, and we've been presenting that as this particular episode of Creation Today. It's been a production of God Quest Ministries. Thank you so much for watching us. Please be with us next time.
This program is available on DVD by visiting creationstore.org or by calling 877-479-3466. To order this episode, use the item number displayed on your screen.